Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley if you're new here, and in this video I am going to be talking about the best and the worst things about homeschooling. So if you are new here, I have a kindergartner this year, a pre-K 3, and a 1-year-old daughter. This is our second year homeschooling, so I only have 2 years of experience. But I wanted to talk about the things that are really hard about homeschooling, and I wanted to share the things I really love about homeschooling. So I'm coming at this from a place of really loving homeschooling, so I feel like I want to get that out of the way first. I don't struggle a lot with deciding, is it for us or should I put my kids in school? I definitely struggle with a lot of things that comes to homeschooling, but I just want to make sure that it's clear right off the bat that I love homeschooling. I consider it a huge, huge blessing that I get to do it. So yeah, just a little disclaimer before we get started. I thought I would start the video off with things that are hard first, so that we could wrap it up with the things that are really good about homeschooling, just because I want to leave on a good note, not on a bad note. So the first thing that I thought of when I was thinking about the things that are hard about homeschooling is that it is really hard mentally sometimes. It feels like everything is on my plate, and I really obviously want to do a really good job at the things that are on my plate, and sometimes because of the amount of things that are on it, it feels kind of very difficult to do a good job in everything. So for example, things like obviously homeschooling, I want to do a good job when I'm homeschooling my children. I want to be patient and loving and sit and spend the time with them and be, patient when they have their own things that they're going through. I also want to be really good at feeding my family. I want to try to give them the best nutritious, healthy foods that I can, and I want to be a good homemaker. I want to make sure my home is clean, that it's running well. I want to make time for my faith and for friends, and I want to make time for getting the kids outside, making sure that they're not watching too many screens. And as you can see, it just feels overwhelming sometimes because we have the internet with us wherever we go, and we're constantly seeing what everyone is good at and comparing ourselves to that and thinking, well, I should be doing more of what they're doing or more of what they're doing, and my foods are not healthy enough, or my kids watch more screens than theirs do, or all the things. So that's the first one. Homeschooling is hard because there's a lot on your plate, and the mental load can be tough to navigate sometimes. The second thing on the list is that homeschooling can be financially challenging. So obviously, if someone is staying home and homeschooling the children, they most likely are not working, or it is a big challenge to work. So in our family, my husband has always been the one to work, and I have always been trying to find a viable option that I can make money from home that doesn't impose too much on my time. Partly why I'm here on YouTube. I think it's a really cool opportunity to make money doing things that you love. And because I've really been enjoying homeschooling, it's just come very naturally to me to share about that on here. So, but honestly, it can be challenging financially because it's very challenging to find the time to work, because my husband's working full time and he honestly gets home like after lunchtime. So I feel like for other people it could be like even more challenging, because if your husband doesn't get home till after dinner, there's no time really for you to work unless it's at night, and I'm sure everyone is tired by then. I don't want to work after dinner or anything like that. So having only one income can obviously be very challenging. The next thing on my list that is challenging is that you get very little alone time when you homeschool your children. You obviously are with them all day, and then it's difficult sometimes to even just remove yourself from the family like atmosphere, because if I just come into my room and close the door, my 1-year-old daughter doesn't like that and she'll cry sometimes or be very upset, and then that adds extra stress to my husband that I don't want. So it can be really challenging not getting some time alone, especially for me because I am an extreme introvert. So I typically end up staying up later than my husband and getting a little bit of time to myself at night. And I have really tried to also go to bed at a reasonable hour though, even though I do crave that time alone, so that I can get up before my kids and I have a little bit of time to read my Bible and be alone and pray and get my mind right for the day. And those things help tremendously. I also have always had a really strict schedule where the kids either have quiet time or nap time, depending on their ages. So I can have at least an hour to 2 hours alone in the middle of the day. This is super essential to my mental health. If I don't have that time, then I feel like there's just so much static in my head. Like I get overstimulated. I need some time to just kind of take a step back and be myself apart from being a mom or a wife and be just me. And so that's how I deal with it. But it can be really challenging because, you know, now that the kids are getting older, I want to get them out of the house too. And so a lot of the time that falls within that window of time that I would be by myself. And so if I skip over that, I'll feel guilty if I'm not bringing them out, but then I also need that time for myself sometimes. So it's a balancing act and it is challenging. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about that weighs pretty heavily on me as the kids are getting older, this is kind of like a pro and a con of homeschooling, but I'm going to talk about the con first and then we could talk about the pro later when we're talking about the best things about homeschooling. It is that you don't have anyone to share the load of disciplining your child or training your child. And like I said, that can be a good thing, but it can be challenging because it feels like sometimes you don't ever get a break from their challenges, which then can make it really hard to have patience for their challenges, which makes me very upset sometimes because I want to have grace for them. I don't want them to feel like that they can't do enough, like right, and that I'm always on them for the things that they do wrong, but I also know the importance of training them and disciplining them, and I want them to have that as their childhood as well. And so yes, that can be challenging. It can also be a very good thing and something I'm really thankful for. Another con of homeschooling is the assumptions that you get. I luckily so far haven't had to deal with this too much, but I am a people pleaser by nature, and so I do get nervous about this in the future or just so far. And when I go to like big family events or something with like extended family, I get nervous that someone will judge us or assume something that's not true about us because we homeschool. Obviously, we all know there are assumptions that are not true or are not true for everyone about homeschoolers, and when I get nervous, I don't think very well and I can't articulate myself well enough to sometimes defend ourselves. And so that's something that I am nervous about in the future. But I think as we're doing it more, the more confident I get and the less I think that will be a problem. So that's a good thing. And then the last negative of homeschooling is it's kind of similar to the first one, but it's a little bit different. It's feeling that the weight of their education, their socialization, their friendships, their everything, their whole lives, I guess, is on you, which of course it is anyway. It doesn't matter where you send your kid to school, that is your responsibility. But it kind of feels like you are sharing that responsibility with the teacher if you send them to school, especially obviously when it comes to education. It's, you are doing your part by sending them to school, and then the teacher takes the responsibility of actually teaching them. And when it comes to education, I like that part. I think that it's a huge blessing that I get to be the one to do it, but it's also a huge undertaking, obviously, and this is like their lives and they need to have a good education to succeed in life, and so it is weighty. But what gets me a bit more is the friendships and the socialization. Because I am an introvert, I tend to get worried about, like, in the future of, like, what if I don't bring them out of the house enough and they don't make good quality friendships enough. And I mean, I don't know why I worry so much about that anyway, because so far I feel like they have that. They seem fully content and my boys are best friends so far. And obviously my 1-year-old doesn't really have the ability to make friends yet. And I know that in the end, I will do whatever it takes to make sure that they get what they need. But I guess I'm worried of some unspoken need or something that I'm missing, and I just want them to feel fulfilled in life, and it just kind of feels like sometimes it's all on me, and sometimes I don't know if I'm doing a good enough job, I guess. But that's why, staying close to God and asking for wisdom in this is so important, because He will lead us, and I have faith in that for sure. Okay, so now I want to talk about the good things, the stuff that I love about homeschooling, because there are so many. I have just kind of like a short list now, but these things mean, like I said in the beginning, they mean so much to me. I'm so very thankful that I get to be the one to homeschool the kids. And so the very first one is that you get to spend so much time with your kids. Obviously, like, there can be a negative of that, like I talked about, but for the most part, honestly, it is a blessing. It's a huge, huge, huge positive of homeschooling. I love spending all day with them. Occasionally when it gets hard or something and I think about them going to school or something, it's it feels a bit devastating to think about, like, them being gone for so long. Like, I love being with them all day, and I love being the one to take care of them. And so yeah, that's the first one. You get to spend all day with your kids, and what a blessing that really is. The next one is that you get to tailor your child's education to their strengths and their interests and their weaknesses. I think, like, that's one of the coolest things about homeschooling. If they are struggling with a curriculum, if I feel like another curriculum is a better fit for them, I can just change it. I get to be the one to pick the curriculum and help them along and teach them all of the things, and that's just the coolest thing to me. We get to walk alongside them and really get to see their strengths as they grow and help them hopefully pick a career that will be a good fit for them in the future, and we'll have a bit more depth to them, hopefully, because we've spent so much time with them over the years. So the next one is the positive of the feeling the weight of their training and discipline on you. That is also a positive. So I want to talk about that as well. Even though it can feel a bit daunting sometimes and a bit scary, because I don't always know the right thing to do when it comes to training them or disciplining them. On the other side of the coin, it's amazing because I have so much more time to do those things. I have so much more time to reach their heart and to find the right discipline tactics with each of my children, and I get to spend so much time to train them into being hopefully godly people as they grow, and that is a huge blessing. That's amazing that we get so much time with them. And the last thing I wanted to talk about being a positive of homeschooling is getting to pick the people that they get to be closest with, especially their friends growing up, especially as they are young. It's a huge blessing that I get to choose other families that have the same values and the same worldview and the same faith, that I get to have my children be around their children and know that they will not be met with things that are counter to what I'm teaching them at this age. Obviously, in time, they will be exposed to those things, and at that point, I hope they will be ready for it. But right now, I feel it's a huge blessing to be able to shelter them in some way from the things that could be harmful to them at this age. So that is all that I have for you today. I would love to hear from you. What do you think are the pros and the cons of homeschooling? What's your favorite or least favorite thing about homeschooling? Do you relate to any of these things? I'd love to hear from you, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.